Hey everyone, I'm back for our sourdough bread part 2 edition. So when I left off with the first video, I had set it to bulk ferment on the counter. And after that, what I did is I got my pastry mat out and sprinkled flour on it. And I put it on there. And I just sort of folded the corners on top of each other and pinched it to seal. And then I flipped it over and I just sort of rolled it around and got that to smooth out. Then I floured my banneton bowl and I put that in here, and it's been in the refrigerator overnight. My recipe says 12 to 15 hours. I have read in some sourdough groups where people do a couple days. Basically, the longer you leave it in the refrigerator, the more sour of a taste it's going to get. You could also, after 3 to 4 hours, just leaving it on the counter again, go ahead and bake, but it's probably not going to have that much of a sour taste. So, what we're going to do now is I have my oven preheated. Now, I differ a little bit from the recipe because, you know, everybody's ovens are a little different. My oven and stovetop gets very hot very quick, and so I have to watch to make sure it's not overly brown. And this still gets a little browner or a little crispier than I like it, but so the recipe says to preheat a Dutch oven in your oven at 500 degrees for an hour. I have it at 450, and that's what I'm going to start mine at. When we start baking it, we are going to turn that down after. I'll get to that in a minute. So, what we're going to do is we are going to take parchment paper. I bought mine in the sheets this last time, so I am going to crisscross that. And we are going to dump our sourdough in the middle of it. Just push that to the side. Now, this is just like a cotton muslin liner inside of a bowl. I have read in some of the sourdough groups that some people don't wash this every time, that they just leave it, let it dry like it is, and sprinkle it with more flour and keep going. I don't know if they bake more often than I do. I'm usually just a bake on the weekend baker, so I throw it in the wash. I just don't put it in the dryer, and then I sit it out and let it dry at room temperature each time. I think that's the best way to do it, but okay. So you can use something that's called a lame, which is basically a smaller knife. I'm just going to use my Pampered Chef knife. I've been using my regular knives and it's been fine. I have one, I just haven't took it out of the box and used it. So at this point, what we're going to do is, this is where you're going to make the fancy designs on your sourdough bread. And I have done it just as a crisscross. I've done it like a curvy line in the middle and done some little, I don't know, little smaller cuts. Let's see. And you want to kind of, you don't want to cut all the way through, but you do want to go in kind of deep, because that's going to open up as it bakes. And that's what gives it that, what they call an ear look. I don't honestly know what would happen if you didn't do it. I just always have done it. So I'm gonna kind of make this look like a ray of sunshine, I think. I'm just gonna do some smaller, and larger, and smaller. And I'm gonna leave that side smooth. So I don't know if you can see that. I'm gonna sort of tilt that down where I did the longer line and then the shorter. And I'm going to go back in and make those a little deeper, the shorter ones, I think. Because that's going to puff up as that bakes. But you by no means don't have to be extremely fancy if you don't want to. I have, like I said, just done a straight line and another straight line, made a cross pattern, and been done with it. Okay, so now we're going to take this really hot Dutch oven out. And another reason I dropped mine back from 500 is I think it really has a steamy, smoky smell in here when I do that. And you can see it's definitely steaming. So we are going to, I can't hardly work with the gloves to drop this in, but I'm going to put this in and try to not touch the Dutch oven, so I don't want to get burnt. There we go. And I just set that in there like so. And what that's going to do, that's going to go ahead and start crisping the bottom of the bread. There was one more thing I wanted to do. I find that my sourdough breads get really crispy and crunchy, so that when I'm cutting, it makes that crunchy sound. I would like to get it to where it'd be a little softer, kind of like in the grocery store. I mean, not super soft, but you know what I mean. So I have read that you could put some ice in there, in the inside. I'm going to try putting a couple cubes of that if I have it. Actually, you know what? I may just set a different container with a bowl of water in my oven just to give it some moisture. Well, once I put the lid on, that's not going to give it moisture. Let me grab a couple pieces of ice. Okay, well, scratch that. We don't have any ice made up. I'll have to try that again later. I may do the water trick. Okay, so at this point, we're going to put the lid back on, pop this back in the center. Now, I did move my top right down one to accommodate this. And I'm leaving it at 450. This is going to bake for 20 minutes, and I'm going to go ahead and set a timer because I may get sidetracked doing some other things. That does happen.